Hello world, welcome back to the Rlaarlo RC, and we're doing a fun one today. We're doing the budget radio shootout. So I think the best upgrade you can make to any RTR vehicle is to get a better radio. Unfortunately, most RTRs come with fairly simple, fairly basic radios, generally very low performance, no multi-model memory, with rare exceptions. So pretty much with any RTR, I think it's a great idea to go with another radio, especially if you start buying more and more vehicles. You really want to bind them to all one radio so you're not having to have like 10 controllers in your garage or whatever. So we're going to talk about the four major radios I think on the market today. We've got the Flysky FS-GT3C from Flysky, probably the biggest brand of the four of these. Been around a really long time, about, I don't know, 7-8 years, something like that at this point. Flysky has since then become actually a really big player within the radio market. So this is one of their entry-level radios. Been around a long time, but they do have newer and bigger ones as of today. In the number 2 spot is the Dumbo RC. This was the winner of the last comparison I did before. Fairly popular radio. It's 6-channel, very long radio, pretty much based off like the Radio Link protocol, which is another major manufacturer of radios. And yeah, just great radio overall. Number 3, we got the LDARC. So that is a smaller brand. They haven't been around that long. They do make a few different transmitters out there. Again, kind of a budget radio around 40-50 bucks or so. And then we got the new Rlaarlo CT8A. So this has just been released about a month ago. It is available, sells for 40 bucks. So all these radios sell somewhere between 40 and like $55, $60, depending on where you pick these up. The prices definitely vary a lot overseas as opposed to here in the US if you buy them from Amazon or whatever. But yeah, they're kind of in that range, and we're going to find out which is the best radio. The other thing I want to mention is that these are all free radios. So a lot of people say I'm biased or whatever because I get something for free. Well, they're all free. So I don't think you can claim that, I have preference for one of theirs. This is just my honest opinion. Not that it makes a difference whether they're free or not, but in case any of you were wondering. We're going to first talk about the Flysky FS-GT3C, the oldest in this comparison, and we do have full reviews on all these radios, so if you want to know more about these in depth, I'll have links in the description below. But this has been around a long time. Fairly decent radio. It's got a nice display, big 7-segment, or dot matrix type display, offset wheel. Does come with a lithium ion battery here, included 800 milliamp hour battery, so that's nice. You just charge it with your micro USB cable. Fold down antenna, all your basic options, multi-model memory, name reversing, endpoints trim, dual rate expo ABS. So yeah, pretty basic radio. I mean, the pros of this thing are it's been around a long time. A lot of people are familiar with this. Receivers are super cheap. These little receivers are like 10 bucks or something like that. So very inexpensive to, have more of these. You can change the battery out, so that's nice. Foam wheel is offset. Display is really big. It's a dot matrix display, but very large to see. Downsides to this, I think number 1 is the build quality on this is kind of low. I've definitely seen several of these fail in the past. I had an orange one that also failed, so I think that's kind of the number 1 issue. The springs break in the steering wheels, the battery can go bad, so I'm not as big a fan because it just doesn't seem that reliable. Functionality wise, it's pretty good. It has all the adjustments you wanted me. The configuration menu is also somewhat weird. I find it a little bit hard to use. A lot of times you're hitting like a button that you think would make a change or say the change, and it doesn't do it all. I have also had issues with this thing actually calibrating like a Traxxas vehicle. Not really sure why, but yeah, this is probably not that great of a choice in my opinion. That's why it didn't win in previous competitions, but a popular radio. I think at the time it was pretty good because it was one of the few really cheap radios that had actually really nice functionality, but as of today, it's not something I would go with. Dumbo RC is a very popular radio, 6 channels, does have a gyro in the receiver, so they make a couple different versions, one with gyros, one's without. It is single model memory and does use just basic analog knobs here, so it's kind of old school. You got switches and dials to make adjustments, but 6 channels. You can adjust the lights and stuff like that, so that's kind of cool. The foam wheel, is something I modified. So the out of the box comes with like a hard plastic radio, probably the number one thing I don't like about. In addition to that, it is single model memory, but it does have long range, so that's probably one of the best things about this. If you're doing speed runs, maybe the best choice because it has really long distance range. It's, you know, 40, 50 bucks, so price wise it's okay. No external antenna, pretty sleek, you know, decent radio overall, no real bells or whistles or anything. It's just got a basic thing, no display, you know, no menu or anything like that. So, and then no multi-model memory, I think, is the biggest weakness of this thing. Decent radio, especially if you're doing high-speed runs, and was pretty good before. Then we got the LDARC CT01. So this is kind of a newer player. It is a little bit smaller than your standard radio, so that's probably my number one complaint. I mean, you can see the handle's quite a bit shorter, so if you got big hands, I would say it's probably not the best choice, but it does have a nice little display. It does have, I think it's 6 channels or 8 channels, quite a few channels, nice, very precise. Steering wheel feels really good, the trigger feels pretty good. Does have all your adjustments and knobs here to make, you know, endpoint adjustable throttle, that kind of thing. A little bit more difficult to use, and definitely the menu is a little bit hard to see, or I would say a lot hard to see. You know, if you're old like me, got bad eyes, if you're nearsighted or whatever, probably not the greatest choice, but they do have like little configuration switches and stuff that actually light up when you go up, down, left, right, that kind of thing. This is like an on-off switch, so pretty nice overall. Just a little bit small. Also, just the display is a little bit small. I do find, you know, setting adjustments a little bit tricky on this thing, especially like endpoint adjustment. You kind of have to set it, test it, go back, set it, test it, go back. It's kind of annoying, I would say. The handle is also fairly small, so I don't have big hands, but you know, this barely fits me, and I would say feels a little cramped even for me, even though you know, I don't really have the biggest hands. Otherwise, decent radio, you know, no real major issues are in that. It's kind of small, and the display is kind of small. And then the newest radio on the block, the Rlaarlo CT8A. So again, a $40 radio, 8 channels, multi-model memory, 8 models as well. A nice full color display, actually pretty good. Has transmitter voltage, receiver voltage, all that kind of stuff. So nice little thing. So yeah, as you know, change the knobs, it actually shows you what it's actually set at. Multi-model 8 models, like I mentioned. A lot of adjustments, although the naming of these things is really weird. So like for the channels, like the range is what's called, is basically endpoint adjustment. Fine-tuning is basically like your trim. So remapping, you can configure, you know, what channel is mapped to which button, stuff like that. So a lot of configuration, even some fairly advanced things like you know, expo or linearity is what they call it. You know, you can change things. ESC setup, I'm not really sure if, you know, you can control ESCs with some of these. Maybe there's IBUS 2 or something like that. But they do have servo frequency as well. So if you got highly responsive servos, you know, digital servers, you can actually adjust that. So I think that's actually pretty cool. So yeah, very fully featured, reasonably priced, you know, just I think actually a pretty solid radio. Downsides to this is it does take, or it does have a 4 AA pack, but I found this didn't really work right. I'm not really sure why, but I think that's kind of a known bug. But it does have a spot for an 18650 batteries, which is what I would run, or you could probably, you know, run like a lithium ion or something like that. But yeah, that's probably the number one issue, is that it doesn't really seem to run off 4 AA's correctly. The other thing is, not too sure on the build quality on this, you know, long term. Seems pretty nice out of the box. The foam wheel trigger feels pretty good. It does have a lot of switches and stuff, so a lot of configuration things, no external antenna. And then the last thing I kind of didn't like is that it does have this thumb wheel, but normally it sticks out right here, and I found it just kind of got in the way of my thumb. So I moved it, you know, 90 degrees to point at the bottom, so it's just kind of out of the way. Maybe you want to consider cutting that off, or, you know, at least changing the direction, because it does get kind of annoying. But yeah, other than that, I would say it actually seems like a pretty good radio. Price-wise, it's pretty good. Receivers are a little bit big, as you might expect for an 8-channel radio, but, you know, I don't know, seems like okay. It does have fairly short dual antennas. That's a little bit weird as well, but I'm sure for that longer range. So between all 4 of these, I would say Flysky FS-GT3C. I don't really see a reason to buy this at this point. I mean, unless you already have a bunch of Flysky receivers, maybe you'd go with that, but probably not my pick. The Dumbo RC, just limited in features. It is a fairly basic radio. It does have gyro and 6 channels, but other than that, fairly basic, but it does have really long range, so I think a lot of people like it for that reason. It also does not have endpoint adjustment, so that's another main feature I think all radios should have. It doesn't have that, so it does have dual rate, but that's not exactly the same. Dual rate changes both sides equally, but endpoint adjustment, you can adjust each side of your steering differently, and that's really something you would normally want to have. LDARC, it's not a bad radio. Actually, performance of this seems pretty good. Just a little bit small, you know, more like a kid's radio, I would say, and then display is super small, just hard to navigate. Price is right though at 40 bucks. You know, it's actually a pretty good value, and the receivers are cheap and stuff like that. But my pick would be the Rlaarlo CT8A. I mean, it's just got all the functionality, 8 channels, lowest price, 40 bucks. You know, you can do lots of things like servo frequency, which, you know, even a lot of like more advanced radios don't have. Just nice display. I really don't see anything wrong with this radio. This would be my pick for a budget radio if you want to pick up, you know, something less expensive. And it's still multi-model memory. So 8 memory is not a huge number of vehicles, but enough to get you started. And, you know, for a more of a budget person, maybe you don't have 20 cars. Once you start getting to 20 cars, maybe you want to get like a $200 radio. But for 40 bucks, I think it's a great little value. Nice film wheel. So really no major complaints, no real complaints, I guess, about that radio other than, you know, the menu, you know, some of the naming's a little bit weird. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, definitely hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon, and thanks for watching.